Hey everybody, I hope you're doing well in these unprecedented times. For today, on this virtual Wednesday, we're going to be going over the Villanelle. We've read Elizabeth Bishop's one art, we went like how she created it and revised it the one day, but today we're just really going to get to dig into the Villanelle form and really just, get a very firm grasp on it. So the word Villanelle, it's a French word. It originally comes from a thing meaning like peasant song or folk song. And it's evolved from a song that would be like sung in the fields as a work song. Around like row, row, row your boat. People sing songs this way because it's like, hey, like you're wandering through the field, you're meandering, people are coming in and out. But if it's around and you know the song, you just wait until the line comes up again, like if people are singing row, row, row your boat, you just, sorry, try not to sneeze. Nothing happened. But like you coming on the row, row, row your boat, or merrily, 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 merrily. I mean, you know where to come in because it's a repetitive song that you just sing in circles. And the Villanelle, as I'm sure you know, is a poem that has repeated lines. Specifically, it has two repeated lines called refrains, and it has a specific rhyme scheme. But before we get into that, it'll be easier to have examples to go on, so I'm just gonna read some Villanelles aloud. Open them up on the page, read them first, that helps you follow along. But I'm just going to read them aloud for you. The first one is the very first Villanelle ever written, we think. It's the poem that, created the Villanelle. It's not spectacular or anything, but it's interesting, And it's not always that we have to, what was the first sonnet, or, what was the first haiku, or stuff like that. We can just be like, oh, hey, this was the first Villanelle. Pretty much it, Popularization of the Villanelle, different story, very academic. But what are you guys? You into academia in college? Nerds. Yes, I'm just going to read the first Villanelle. They're like the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm just going to go through 1 through 5. If this one doesn't show up, you might have to download it and open it up. But it is by Passerat, Jean Passerat. Here we go. I have lost my turtle dove. Isn't that her gentle coo? I will go and find my love. Here you mourn your mated love. O God, I am mourning too. I have lost my turtle dove. If you trust your faithful dove, trust my faith is just as true. I will go and find my love. Plaintively you speak your love. All my speech is turned into, I have lost my turtle dove. Such a beauty was my dove, other beauties will not do. I will go and find my love. Death again entreated of, take one who is offered you. I have lost my turtle dove. I will go and find my love. Yeah. So that's the first Villanelle. It's pretty cool. You can hear the lines being repeated, the refrains. Doves are just like you've heard love doves, lovey-dovey. It's not that I don't know if they do actually. I don't know that much about birds and more about grass. But turtle doves or doves mate for life, so they're love symbols, that sort of thing. And we kind of have an Orpheus and Eurydice vibe going on with the doves here. Pretty cool. I mean, very neat for a first take at the form. The next one we're going to look at is another famous, I guess the first one's technically famous, but this one's probably one you've actually heard, is Do Not Go Gentle Into That Good Night. I'm just going to read aloud, and then we're going to look at it as a way to go over the Villanelle form. And looking at there's a orange link that's Villanelle rhyme scheme, Villanelle guide. This is the poem it's for, so if you just want to bring up that and look at it, I'll read it, and then we can take a deeper look at the form. Alright. Do Not Go Gentle Into That Good Night by Dylan Thomas. Do not go gentle into that good night. Old age should burn and rave at close of day. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. The wise men at their end know dark is right. Because their words had forked no lightning, they do not go gentle into that good night. Good men, the last wave by, crying how bright their frail deeds might have danced in a green bay. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. Wild men who caught and sang the sun in flight, and learned too late they grieved it on its way, do not go gentle to that good night. Grave men near death, who see with blinding sight, blind eyes could blaze like meteors and be gay. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. And you, my father, there on the sad height, curse, bless me now with your fierce tears, I pray. Do not go gentle into that good night. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. Don't accept death as easy, Very humanist, like Carpe Diem poem, written in the early 1900s, which is really to call them the 1900s as opposed to just, like, the 20th century, because, like, I was born in the 1900s, But yeah. So the way the form works, if you look at the do not sheet, you'll hear the rhyme, you'll see the rhyme scheme, A, B, A, B. Villanelles generally only have 2 end rhymes. Almost always. I actually haven't seen one that's not, even though I've seen, like, altered versions of the Villanelle. The 2 rhyme sounds in Do Not Go to That Good Night are the I sound, the night and light, and then the A sound in day. Night, light, day. I, A. And that's it. The lines marked with A are the I sound, the lines marked with B are the A sound. And that's just how it goes down throughout the lines, It's the Villanelle, I've mentioned this in conferences and probably in class. The Villanelle is a form that tends to obsession, because we have the refrains. You see the A-B, the A-B, you've probably seen that before, it's probably simple, but there's the 1-2, and that's where the Villanelle really gets tricky. So the 1 denotes the first refrain, which a refrain is just a repeated line in a song or a poem. The 2 denotes the second. And it goes, the very first line of the Villanelle is the first refrain, and it appears at the end of the second stanza, 1, 2, 3, the 4th stanza, and then it appears in the last stanza. Sorry, just gotta check. And as the penultimate line. And then the second refrain, too, appears at the end of the 3rd stanza, the 5th stanza, and then is itself the very last line. And it's just, it's a simple concept, but it's very difficult not very difficult, it's certainly possible, but it's hard to write a poem where so much of the real estate is just stuff you've already said in the poem, Like, we get it, Thomas. Rage against the dying of the light. I'll rage. I got it. Okay, So the trick is with each repetition adding more meaning to that repetition, And it works largely in Thomas's, especially at the turn near the end, we have, like, all these people, and, death is a very traditional subject for poetry. Don't, like, just accept it. Don't be, like, this calm, like, Socrates vibe of just, like, oh, I'm going to die, whoa. Fight against it, rage a little bit. And then we have the turn towards, like, his father at the end, where he's like, I'm watching my dad die, and it's so sad, It's, very relatable, and it's like, the dad's like, oh, it's my time. He's like, no, Dad, like, fight, come on. And it's a lot to deal with. There's not an easy answer to that question. But yeah. I also have 3 more Villanelles. I have Letter to My Blackout. Is it Letter? Yeah, Letter to My Blackout by Maria Hummel. Not Pastoral Enough by Veronica Forrest Thompson. And then Mad Girl's Love Song by Sylvia Plath. 1 through 4 on a chronological order. Sylvia Plath, the last one, kind of skips back. And these are some more modern Villanelles and are more lively, for sure. So, here's Letter to My Blackout. Letter to My Blackout. Dear Sip, dear Shotgun, dear Pound, beneath the house the kegs roll in. The party flips its switches down. When drunk comes, it comes as sound, a chord a lift off. I ride the rim, dear Sip, dear Shotgun, dear Pound. He could be anyone and he abounds. I slip inside a dance with him. The party flips its switches down. Let's go, he says, upstairs now. My cup spills, my shirt is skin. dear ship, dear shotgun, dear pound, I won't. Get lucky, get found. But kegs run out, the hour brims, the party flips its switches down. His hips to mine, his arms around, the song ends and dark begins. Dear sip, dear shotgun, dear pound, the party flips its switches down. I think in terms of just like endearment, I think definitely one of my favorite Villanelles just because the Villanelle is such like a rigid and sort of like, it's a very formal form, you know? I guess all forms are formal, but this one is just like so, it's kind of lighthearted, or at least it's lighthearted in the sense that it just talks about like a hookup at a party. And it's not necessarily like happy about the hookup, and it's, what is it? He could be anyone and he abounds. It's definitely like a, you know, like just trying to like stave off loneliness kind of thing. But I love that like this modern sort of subject is found in a villain now, and I think it's very interesting. And it does a really good job at adding the meaning, I think, and I think that's intentionally chosen, like with the blackout and the deer sip, deer shotgun, deer pound. Like each time it said that, it's like the speaker's drinking more. They're getting closer to that blackout, you know. They're getting closer to like the point of no return where your brain just stops making memories, which is good. And then the party flips its switches down, you know, as like things get dark and get quiet. So in summary, it's cool and I like it. All right. It's time for Not Pastoral Enough by Forrest Thompson. Homage to Willie Mempson. This one's more of like a meta villanelle, in a sense, more of like a meta poem, like Marion Moore's poetry we read earlier. Not pastoral enough. It is the sense, controls, landing every poem like a fish. Unhuman forms must not assert their roles. Glittering scales require the deadly tolls of net and knife. Scales fall to relish. It is the sense, controls. Yet languages are apt to miss on souls if reason only guts them. Applying the wish, unhuman forms must not assert their roles. Ignores the fact that poems have two poles that must be opposite. Hard then to finish, it is the sense, controls. Without a sense of lining up for doles from other kitchens that give us the garnish, unhuman forms must not assert their roles. And this, forgive me, is like carrying coals to Sheffield. Irrelevance betrays a formal anguish. It is the sense, controls. Unhuman forms must not assert their roles. So this is a meta poem. It's funny, you know, with the haikus yesterday, we have the lines in here is like, ignores the fact that poems have two poles that must be opposite, you know, so we're kind of getting some intersectionality with juxtaposition in villanelles and haikus. Those are all buzzwords. Intertextuality, I should say, actually. Yeah, and this is just, I think, another really interesting take on the villanelle. You know, you've read 6 now, well, or you will have shortly. And this is one where it like talks about the controlling form of the villanelle, ending every poem like a fish. Looking at you again, Elizabeth Bishop. She's a girl. Bless up. It's like reason gutting the languages, missing on souls. Unhuman forms must not assert their roles. You know, unhuman forms of like spooky, scary, but also like poetic forms. The language is really smart and clever throughout, and it's a really good meta statement on poetry that's not too like heavy-handed, which is, I think, great. And so this last one, Mad Girl's Love Song, excuse me. It's by Sylvia Plath. If you haven't heard of Sylvia Plath, you probably have. Super important confessional poetry. She didn't invent confessional poetry, but she kind of like made it anyway. Confessional poetry is poetry about personal stuff, very raw, very from the heart. You know, like, you know, a confession, you know, that sort of thing. So her work deals a lot with personal trauma and like working through that through poetry and expressing that and how that trauma goes in the world. If you're someone that writes about trauma a lot, you gotta check out Sylvia Plath. You got to. No two ways around it. I would say go to the library, but that's probably not a good idea right now. Even Amazon isn't. I mean, Amazon works, but then you have to buy it. Um, but see if you can find her poems online, and it'll be really impactful for your poetry if you write about that sort of stuff. You know, that sort of stuff, like, we are anything but the things we've experienced, you know? But here we go, Mad Girl's Love Song. I shut my eyes and all the world drops dead. I lift my lids and all is born again. I think I made you up inside my head. The stars go waltzing out in blue and red, and arbitrary blackness gallops in. I shut my eyes and all the world drops dead. I dreamed that you bewitched me into bed, and sung me moonstruck, kissed me quite insane. I think I made you up inside my head. God topples from the sky, hell's fires fade, exit seraphim and Satan's men. I shut my eyes and all the world drops dead. I fancy you'd return the way you said, but I grow old and I forget your name. I think I made you up inside my head. I should have loved a thunderbird instead. At least when spring comes they roar back again. I shut my eyes and all the world drops dead. I think I made you up inside my head. Alright. So Mad Girl's Love Song is is very good. Okay, that's it, I guess. No, I think this was one that really does a good job, because we've mentioned the Villanelle is about obsession. It's kind of singular. It focuses on this one thing with the refrains, turning it over and over in the poem and, you know, inside the speaker's brain or whatever. But the danger with that, and the way Villanelle can kind of turn out to be boring or not good, is that it's just too much of the same thing over and over. You have to make each repetition of the refrains new and interesting. And I've said this before, I'm just saying it again. And this one does such a good job of that. We have the second refrain, I think I made you up inside my head, in parentheses. The parentheses, I love parentheses in poetry. I love, like, the whispered effect that you sort of get, because I think, especially in a confessional poem, like, the whisper is a very good feel to go for. But the way it progresses throughout, because, like, I think I made you up inside my head. The first one is almost like, oh, you know, it's a love song, they miss someone. It's like, oh, they were so good, I wonder if they were even actually real, you know. And then, you know, the second repetition, sung me moonstruck, kissed me quite insane, I think I made you up inside my head. It's starting to come apart a little bit. And then we have, like, I grow old and I forget your name, I think I made you up inside my head. We move way forward in time, and the speaker's like, I don't even remember if that was real, and I don't think it is. So we really have this sort of, like, thing that just goes from, like, missing to sort of, like, did that even exist? And since it's the Mad Girl's Love Song, which, this was written, you know, 30s or 40s, definitely not 30s, though she did publish her first poem at the age of 8, as you can also see on your screen. They're like 40s, 50s, and she didn't use especially sensitive language always, as we could say. But, like, mad, you know, she's going crazy, she's going insane. So this sort of, like, doubting your senses is a very big part of that. And that's how that second refrain brings it through. I shut my eyes and all the world drops dead. The way that sort of really amps up is that the stakes for shutting my eyes and the world dropping dead get higher each time. You know, I said stakes, but it's just more impactful. The speaker is shutting more out each time. The second time and the second tercet in the second stanza, they're just shutting out the stars, arbitrary blackness galloping in. The third time, God topples from the sky, hell's fires fade. They just shut their eyes. They just close their eyes and let it go away, you know? So that shutting of the eyes, even though it's the same sentence, is made more impactful because of what the speaker's shutting their eyes to, which is really interesting. Yeah. Let's see, let me check what else I have to say, sorry. But yeah, you really just want to make those refrains, like, make it really good. So, yeah. So that's really all I have to say about Villanelle's. It's really one of those things where to explain it, it's easy, but to do it is rather hard. The assignment for today is to write a Villanelle. Obviously, you can pop it in your Friday poems, so it's 2 out of 3 if you want to put your haikus in there. Yeah, so just write a Villanelle, using the rhyme, using the form. You want to try, like, the strictest, truest sense of a Villanelle first before you start getting fiddly with it, you know? Before you start being like, well, what if I change the refrain a little bit, you know, or something like that. Yeah. I hope y'all are doing well. I'll see you in a video about sonnets tomorrow, Friday, you know, whatever. The next time you watch the video, the next one's going to be about sonnets. So it's going to be intense fun. There's a lot about sonnets. I mean, we're also doing the sonnets next week, but bye everyone. Good luck. Stay safe. Take care of each other.